welcome back to the Cutlass Board Games channel. I've got another deck tech video for you. With my upcoming game Cutlass, there is a lot of flexibility when it comes to building a deck, so I've created this video series so I can show a bit of it off so you can get a bit of an understanding of what it's going to be looking like when building the 40 card deck you're going to be playing. This one in particular I think is an interesting take on the self-banish pirates kind of archetype. There's a lot of different ways to play the pirate crewmate deck. This one in particular is a Tyler Ascendant Goddess list, where what Tyler does is if you have no cards in your banished pile, she will claim a treasure. If you have 20 cards in your banished pile, you can shuffle them back into the deck to take an extra turn, and usually this extra turn should be enough for you to close out the game and claim enough treasures to win. But that's not something new. What is different and interesting here is the card draw engine. So this deck has a very strong card draw engine because it's trying to get to Tyler and have 5 cards in hand. That's mission 1 because you need to play her, right? Mission 2 is to get your Eternal Greed online, play something like Scarshank. Also, you need to have cards in your discard pile to be able to banish them with Ambitious Deckhand. Additionally, if you just churn through your deck so fast and so many times, you're going to have to reset, and every time you reset, you banish the top card. Every card banished is Tyler closer to taking an extra turn for you. So let's look at the card draw engine. We've got 8 cards that cost 0. First one is Remnants of Scarshank, which says if you pay a construction point, you can return from your discard pile to your tableau. But when his ability is activated, you can discard him from the tableau to draw a card. Basically, over a period of time, it turns 1 construction point into 1 card drawn, which is slow, but it's a resource you might not use super frequently, and that can be helpful ordinarily. We'll come back to why that's even more powerful in this deck in a second, because we want to talk about Galleon Raider, the other 0 cost pirate, which says you may discard 2 cards. If you do, draw 3 cards. Also, pretty ordinary, pretty fine, right? It says get +1 card, but I get to discard some as well, so I'm digging through my deck kind of quickly. Now, these 2 cards comboed with Gnarly Freediver. This is one that hasn't shown up in any of the deck lists yet because I think it's more niche than some of the other things, right? But I think it's very powerful, and that's why I haven't changed it yet, because it says return up to 2 crewmates that cost 0 from your discard pile to your hand. So let's say it's your first turn. You play Gnarly Freediver. You discard 3 cards. That's the cost. 2 of them cost 0. Gnarly Freediver activates. He puts 2 cards that cost 0 back into your hand immediately, and he effectively costs 1. And every time he activates, he basically draws you 2 cards as long as you have those cards in the discard pile, which is very strong. No other card in the game that's a non-sea monster draws you 2 cards off the rip like this does, and that's why I think it's very powerful. Now, we have an additional synergy piece, because you might notice this deck list is very red, with the exception of 1 Thomas Daring, is very red, because we're playing 1 structure and then mostly crewmates. Because you want to be able to activate pirate, hit everything, and everything activate. But we have the Tide Skipper, and the reason why the Tide Skipper is very strong here is because it says discard a crewmate, activate its effect. So if I discard a Remnants of Scarshank, I get to draw a card. If I discard a Galleon Raider, I get to discard 2 cards, draw 3 cards. And so basically it turns it into slightly more of a looting effect. It's not going to increase your hand size, right? Because with the Galleon Raider, you're discarding 3 cards to draw 3 cards, but you're digging through your deck so much further. And if your tableau is Freediver after a Tide Skipper activates, puts a 0 into the discard pile, Gnarly Freediver picks it back up again, and you repeat that every turn, you're suddenly digging very fast. you're potentially seeing 6 cards move from the Galleon Raider every turn, which is very strong. And then the goal is to be able to get the Tailor down and take advantage of that huge engine happening, and then activate something like the Ambitious Deckhand multiple times, because it's going to start banishing cards from your discard pile and help get you to that 20, which is half of the deck, right? So you have to be moving very quickly. Now, some other things to help set up, we've got Skeletal Salvage, which is an event. When you play an event card, it's banished upon resolution, so that's going to help you get to 20. But this one also says search your deck for 2 crewmates and discard them, which means you can get your 2 0-cost crewmates into the discard pile for the free diver to pick them up. We've also got Abandoned Mutineer. This is another one that hasn't shown up in many deck lists yet, but this one fits very nicely into this deck because we're trying to churn as fast as we can. Get as many cards into the discard pile as fast as we can, because it says both players discard the top 2 cards of their deck. So it also interacts with your opponent. But if you have Eternal Greed, your opponent also discards a card from their hand as well. So you can potentially set it up, if you have multiple Abandoned Mutineers, to have your opponent always have no cards in hand at the start of their turn. They go to their construction step, 1 free construction point. Maybe I can tick something down that I've played face down, but I can't play and do anything. Can't play any events. I don't have any cards in hand. And they go to their draw step, and then they're playing off the top of their deck every turn, which can be very strong against some decks. And so in this list, where you're trying to bin as many cards as you can, it works really nicely, because you're going to be churning extra faster. It's an extra 2 cards every single time, and then you additionally get to discard cards from your opponent. We also have the Sun-Crazed Cannoneer, which says banish the top card of your deck to do 1 damage to anything. So that's going to be slowing your opponent down. If they have no cards in hand and they have damage on stuff, they're only going to have 1 construction point to potentially be healing things. So that can be trying to slow them down in a way that will help get you ahead. But it also banishes a card. It's kind of the cost to activate, but it's going to help you get to 20 much faster. We also have Carrion Deluge. This is just like another disruption type effect, because if you have the Abandoned Mutineer discarding things, Carrion Deluge is going to banish a structure from your opponent's hand, which is also going to slow them down, but it's also an extra card into your banished pile. Thomas Daring, again, does the same thing. Banishes himself at the cost to banish an opponent's sea monster. That's going to help you get to 20. And then he's going to get shuffled back into the deck when you take your extra turn to potentially be able to play him again if you don't win immediately. And then our final pile of tech cards, we've got Void Sign at Midnight. This card is great for making sure Taylor hits the board. We've got our Sea Monster Taylor. She's kind of the key piece to this deck. We're relying a lot on her in the game, and then her activating Ambitious Deckhand multiple times to win the game. That's the main core of it. We're playing 1 Skurd the Unkillable. You can play Skurd from the discard pile as if it was in your hand, and he deals damage to non-pirate things. So this is a good one if you're being slowed down and you're unable to start activating stuff. You didn't hit the free diver, you're unable to start looping your 0-cost things. Skurd, you're able to play from the discard pile because he costs 1. You will always at least have 3 cards in hand going into your main phase, and then he's able to activate your entire tableau for you. So he's a great one-off, especially when you're putting so many cards into the discard pile, because you can play Skurd from the discard pile. And then 1 Scarshank Dreadbeard. He's basically there to help make sure that Ambitious Deckhand hits the table, but you can also select your 0-cost cards to bring them back from the discard pile, because they will come in with development time equal to its discard cost +1. So exactly 1 counter. When you pay your construction point to remove that development time, that card gets turned face up. It's going to activate and send orders to your entire tableau in the construction phase before your main phase. You'll get a whole extra activation of all of your stuff basically for free. And so that's going to work really nicely with our value engine as well. So the whole idea is just draw as many cards as you can. See as much of your deck as possible. and then try and find a way to hit a combo finisher, which I think is going to be a very fun playstyle way to play this game, because in stuff like Magic the Gathering, when you're playing Dredge, you always have that possibility of automatically losing the game yourself because you just have no cards left in the deck. With this, you have your failsafe of Tyler is going to stop you from banishing every single card. And if you discard all of the cards, it's shuffled back into your deck. So you're only really worried about that banish pile, which accumulates much slower. And once you hit that 20 or greater, you play the Tyler, take your extra turn, and you have a whole deck of cards again that you're trying to start banishing all over again. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this is going to compete against some of the other decks in the field. And I'm excited to come and play it. If you're interested in checking it out, in the description I've got a link to the Cutlass Discord. You can find the entire game for free, print and play, print out a whole copy of the game for yourself, or you can play online using Cockatrice. You can set that up. The whole thing is on there. All you have to do is download it from the Discord, and then you can be coming and checking all this out for yourself, coming playing some games, doing some deck building, and seeing what the new game Cutlass is going to be like. So hopefully this deck tech gave you something interesting to think about when it comes to deck building in the game, and hopefully I'll be seeing you soon in the Age of Steel.